رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to ISNA and Fiqh Council's webinar. It's an honor to have a panel of distinguished scholars with me. Joining me this afternoon is Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui, who is the chairman of the Fiqh Council of North America, and he will be joining us, inshallah, for a few minutes. And then I have the pleasure of introducing to you Dr. Rania Awaad. She is MD in clinical and is associate professor of psychiatry at the Stanford University School of Medicine, where she is the director of the Muslim Mental Health Lab. She is also the clinical director of San Francisco Bay Area branches of Khalid Center. MashaAllah, she is an ustaza who has got ijaza from Syria in Quran, Islamic law, and number of Islamic sciences. MashaAllah, welcome, Dr. Rania. It's an honor to have you. MashaAllah, and joining me is also Dr. Ihsan Bagby, who is the Associate Professor of Islamic Studies at University of Kentucky. And mashallah, he has studied with Dr. Umar Abdullah, and his PhD focuses upon usul al-fiqh. For the past 25 years, he has focused on researching the American Muslim community, and he is very active with MANA, with CARE, ISNA, and he is a member of the Fiqh Council of North America. Joining me also is Dr. Osama Bahlul, who got his PhD from Jamiat al-Azhar al-Sharif, and his bachelor and master's also from University of Al-Azhar. MashaAllah, his PhD is in comparative religion, and he is the Imam of Islamic Center of Nashville. Welcome, Dr. Osama Bahlul. Jazakallah khair. Joining me also is Sheikh Rahman Khan. Sheikh Rahman Khan is the graduate of the Islamic University of Medina. He graduated from Faculty of Sharia and specializes in Islamic inheritance. He is the head of ICNA's Sharia Council, and he is the member of the National Interfaith Dialogue Group and a member of the Fiqh Council of North America. Welcome, Sheikh Rahman Khan.
Thank you.
My brothers and sisters, you must have heard that President Trump is asking for the religious institutions to open their doors and to start the services. I would like Brother Khurram to play that video for us for a minute, and then we will start the discussion.
The governors need to do the right thing and allow these very important, essential places of faith to open right now for this weekend. If they don't do it, I will override the governors. In America, we need more prayer, not less. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui, as the chairman of the Fiqh Council of North America, what is your advice to the Muslim community? This coming Sunday is our, mashallah, blessed day of Eid al-Fitr. So should we open the masjid? Should we let the community to do Salat al-Eid in Jama'at, especially in the masjid or outside the masjid? What is your advice?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Alhamdulillah, we are at the end of the blessed month of Ramadan. Inshallah, Eid will be on Sunday. So I congratulate everyone for the coming of this blessed time. Eid Mubarak to everyone. As you know, we are like people of the Christian community, the Jewish community, the Muslim community. We are all looking forward to go back to our mosques. But we are living in a big country and coronavirus has affected different regions in different ways. Some areas have been very badly affected. A lot of people lost their lives, and a lot of people have become sick. And so this is the situation. Under this situation, the Fiqh Council of North America made the decision that the decision should be based on the region by region. We cannot give. We are living in a vast country, big country, mashallah. So we cannot make one decision for everybody. So it has to be based on the region. It has to be based on the data, medical data. What is the situation on the ground? And so we advise the community to follow that. The local authorities, the medical data in your area, that's what should you do. And as Fiqh Council, we cannot make a decision for each center, but we are saying that in case it is not possible for you to have the prayer in your mosque, then our community come together in large number. It is permissible according to Sharia that you have Eid prayer in your homes. So we are giving them the Sharia advice, that is what is allowed and what is not allowed. It is permissible to have prayers at home with the family. You can have your Jama'ah prayer. So that's our advice. Now, what decision each community makes in each region, they have to see their situation there. If situation is difficult, then it is very important to protect the human life. Human life has to be protected, and we should not be triggering the spread of this virus furthermore. It already has affected a large number of people. More than 1.5 million people in our country have been affected, and almost 90,000 people have lost their lives. So we don't want to see that growing. Actually, we would like to see that it should go down. So people have to work on that together. Understand the emotions are there. Emotions are there that we all want to be in our place of worship. But at the same time, we have to protect the life. Islam emphasizes very much the life of every human being is precious and should be protected.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Siddiqui. Now, let me request Dr. Rania. Dr. Rania, you are a medical specialist, and mashallah, you know Islamic Sharia also. So, what do you think should be the response of the Muslim community to the statement of the president? And especially, some of our community members are already pushing for opening the masjid for Eid al-Fitr. And it's a very emotional situation for many of the Muslim community members. So, what is your medical advice in light of Islamic Sharia?
Right, thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. I think, as you mentioned, is very much an emotional time because it is our Eid celebration. We're at the end of a month long of Ramadan, subhanAllah. But at the same time, where we are happy to say that there is, in some areas, a flattening of the curve or a downward trend of the number of cases of COVID, the reality is, without having a COVID-19 vaccine yet, and also with kind of now the lockdown is being eased little by little, we actually are more at a risk for a second wave of COVID infection, which all of the authorities are warning us about and telling us that we really must protect our lives and make sure that we are getting more adapted to this quote unquote new normal way of life. And I really hate being the bearer of bad news, but it's important to say, it's really key here to say that sometimes it's the second wave of the virus could actually be more deadly than the first, simply because we are not being as compliant and we're taking more risks than we were in the first phase. And for that reason, I'm reminded by the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, لا يلدغ المؤمن من حجر مرتين, that a believer is never stung from the same hole twice. And it's really important that we don't actually end up causing more harm after we have been so good about really being careful with this COVID-19 virus. And so, as we look into Eid, and there's very special things about the Muslim community that other communities share, but for us, it's very particular. For example, we know about this virus, for example, that it does disproportionately affect different social economic groups and different ethnicities, and that's important to remember. So it's on us as Muslims to make sure we're protecting others, not just ourselves. Also, a reminder that there are people within our midst. We live in multi-generational households many times, and our elders and our younger people and even those who might be immunocompromised in our communities. We have to be thinking about them beyond just thinking about ourselves. So what's really important here is I'm going to go through the reminder, I hope, inshallah, for everybody, things we've heard before, but it's good to remind, inshallah, how before, we have a vaccine, so pre-vaccine and post, very rigid lockdown, there are lifestyle decisions we have to stick to, even in our Eid celebrations. For example, keeping the 6 feet social distancing, no handshaking or hugging, only giving a verbal salam instead, making sure that we're wearing masks when we're out, washing our hands for more than 20 seconds each and every time, not touching objects that many other people might touch, like door handles, making sure that when we're in public, that we're always cleaning, and even when we're home, but cleaning frequently touched objects like phones and keys are important. And even though it's part of our sunnah to visit the ill and make visits to them, this is a time we're actually asking people not to do so at the moment, to protect, again, their lives and those in their midst. And reminder that anybody who's over the age of 65 or is immunocompromised or showing any signs of being sick, that they do need to continue the self-isolation until it is safer to be out, inshallah. So what that means in terms of Eid on a practical level, the main takeaway that we're really emphasizing here is something called choosing your bubble. And what that means, and this is from the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, what they're recommending is to make sure that we are picking our bubble, our group of people that is no more than 10 in a public setting. And even those group of 10 that you're making sure you're 6 feet apart at all times. And preferably these would be people you're already family with and close to. And the reason for that is, as we're celebrating our Eid and we want to visit family, and the best way to visit with extended family and community and friends is really going to be making sure we're doing this virtually through virtual Eid parties, if you will, which later we can get into other details related to that. But like Dr. Muzammil Siddiqui said, praying at home and celebrating virtually is going to be very important, making sure we're not traveling unless absolutely necessary. And whenever we are with our, making sure that our families are still feeling the beauty of Eid by making sure we're, doubling our efforts if we can with, decorating and gift giving and calling in and checking in on each other virtually. I think these are going to be the most important things to help. And lastly, there are many people who have been complaining and talking about how this has been for them, and especially their children. They're feeling a lot of anxiety around this time. And as somebody who's a mental health expert, I think it's important to really mention this, that we are getting all kinds of calls related to adults and children both experiencing anxiety-like symptoms for not having a typical Eid. And what I really want to say here and reassure everybody is Eid doesn't have to be perfect, and we don't have to celebrate exactly the way we normally have celebrated, but do our very best in small measures. Children often remember the little things, like, the decorations, and not so much what Eid clothes were ironed or not and where they went and had what they wore that day, but rather, our care in really making sure that we make Eid a big deal for them, even within our homes. So I hope, inshallah, that that's important lesson, and we're happy to share resources of how to make sure that people's anxiety states are in a better place, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Rania. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. So we know, even though our politicians are making their own statements and policies, from Islamic perspective, we know that preservation of Islamic life or human life is very important. So my brothers and sisters, we are still requesting you to do your Salat al-Eid at home, do it as a family, and do not gather at the masjid or do not have the larger gathering for Eid prayer. Let me request you, Dr. Osama Bahlul, to talk about the importance of doing Salat al-Eid at home. Now, as you know, some of the scholars have said that Eid prayer must be done in Jama'ah, but if there's no Jama'ah at the masjid, so can the Eid prayer be done at house? And how can we substantiate that from Islamic fiqh perspective?
Be with you all today, and I feel like one of the big lessons through the month of Ramadan, that we learn so much information about our religion. One should be proud of the capability within our Sharia the ability for people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regardless of the circumstances that they are in. Eid is a special celebration. It's a sunnah according to the majority, and wajib according to al-Ahnaf, fard kifaya according to al-Hanabila. But it's a common agreement that al-Masjidiyya was praying Eid at in an Islamic center or in a masjid is not really a condition of Salat al-Eid. People can pray Salat al-Eid and they will make wudu and stand, and a father or one of the boys can lead the family making takbirat al-ihram, and after takbirat al-ihram you will make takbirat al-Eid 7 if you are Shafi'i, or according to the tradition you've been taught, and you recite al-Fatiha and they recite Surah Al-A'la or any other part of the Quran, and you resume your salah normally. Then you will stand from your sujood and you make 5 takbirat or any other numbers. They recite Al-Fatiha and they recite after this Surah Al-Ghashiyah or any part of the Quran. And while praying at home with your family, you don't have then to make khutbah. Khutbah al-Eid is not a requirement, and I feel like we have an opportunity this Eid to practice a tradition that practice part of our religion we did not really practice before. When praying Salat al-Eid at home, it's good for us to make takbir as a families, and to know that Salat al-Eid is not a replacement of Salat al-Fajr. So you pray Fajr normally, and you pray Salat al-Eid. Salat al-Eid's time has a relationship very much with the time of Salat al-Duha, maybe 20 minutes or so after the sun rise, and you have time until 20 minutes or so before Dhuhr. And inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will accept from you, and you meet the Sharia requirement. Someone said, can we pray, can we gather 10 people together? You can if you feel safe, and if the medical community in your locality advise you to do so, and you while maintaining your social distancing. Yes, Dr. Muzammil, Dr. Zulfiqar.
Yes, Akhi. Jazakallah khair. I just want to highlight one point, that when we say that Eid prayer is Sunnah, some of the brothers and sisters think it may not be as important to do Salat al-Eid as is 5 daily prayers or some of the other prayers. I really want to highlight the significance of Eid al-Fitr, because to Ahnaf it is wajibah, which is kind of mandatory. And also to Hanabila it is fard kifaya. And even when the Malikiyah, they say it is Sunnah wajibah. So most of them, they say it is a kind of mandatory thing. Some of them, they say it is mentioned through the indirect reference in the Quran, and the others say it is mandated by Rasulullah. So we will strongly recommend that every Muslim does Salat al-Eid at home and do not abandon it and do not belittle it. Dr. Ihsan Bagby, let me ask you, how can we celebrate the Eid at home, and especially in this type of special situation we are in? So what is your advice? How can the families benefit from this Eid especially, and how can they, mashallah, do it in the best possible manner? Dr. Ihsan.
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and salams to our listeners wherever they are. May Allah bless our community, inshallah, as we enter this time of celebration. You know, I reflect upon our Ramadan, a very special Ramadan, where most of us have been, hunkered down in our homes, have been isolated in our homes. And I say, Allahu Akbar, I enjoyed it so much. It was like a month of i'tikaf. And it reminded me that in Islam, there is a duality between focus on the individual and focus on the communal, on the community, on society. This Ramadan was, for the most part, all about the individual. And to me, that is ultimately in Islam the most important aspect. What does it mean to focus on the individual? It means to strive to improve yourself, to strive to become a better person, to strive to be a person that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And ultimately, Allah makes very clear that it is ultimately all about gaining in taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This is ultimately why we are fasting. So I have been, and I hope many of you have been using this time to focus on the self. And what is this struggle all about? It's really a lifelong struggle against our lower self. It is a lifelong struggle to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a struggle to be more mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our prayer. And that's maybe the first starting point, to have a prayer of presence, mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mindful of every word that you say. This struggle is about mindfulness of what is good, mindful of the choices that we make, mindful of the choices of good and the wherewithal, the strength to make that choice of good. Also, it is the mindfulness of what is bad and mindfulness of those choices that we make of what is bad. It is a struggle of a lifetime, and Ramadan is supposed to be a time in which we realize that struggle, that we move up, we improve, we renew ourselves. So actually, my advice is that we make our Eid the same way. Okay, Ramadan has been about self in a sense and not community. Our Eid should be about self and not about community. Let us celebrate our own renewal of ourselves. Let us celebrate our revival of ourselves. Let's celebrate our renewed commitment to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be mindful at all times, to have the greatest extent of our taqwa as possible. Let that be our celebration. One way we might be able to do that, besides our own personal reflection, this is how I kind of see it. It's a day in particular where I say, Allahu Akbar, thank you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for giving me this opportunity to seek your forgiveness, to improve myself. So that's personal. And inshallah, in salah and the salat during the day, this will be my dua. But maybe we can gather our family around and talk about this point, about the purpose of Ramadan. How are we going to improve ourselves? How are we going to be better in the coming year? What are our commitments? We still have a day. What are the vows, the oaths, the covenant that we might make with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how we might improve our lives? We inshallah know so many of our weaknesses, our faults, our sins. Let us make a covenant with Allah, an oath, in how we might improve ourselves. And this might be something, as you gather for Eid, you might do with your family to discuss this purpose of Ramadan and how we move forward in terms of this great battle to ultimately restrain, to control our lower self, and to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Ihsan. You made a very important point that this month of Ramadan is meant for self purification, and that self purification is needed in Ramadan and also after Ramadan. So, the same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who was during the month of Ramadan, our Lord is the same one who is our Lord after Ramadan. So, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, let me ask you, we are left with almost a day and a half of Ramadan al Mubarak. What should we do to, mashallah, see off Ramadan in the best possible manner? Sheikh Abdul Rahman, can you hear me?
You hear me? Yes, yes.
Yes, please.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of you and to all of our viewers. It's a lot of time still left for us to do a few things. And first and foremost is to utilize these hours that remain today and tomorrow really to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of forgiveness. Sometimes we get caught up with the Eid preparation and we allow this precious time, as we know, innamal a'malu bil khawatim, that the best of actions are those that are ending it. And Ramadan is the whole month is a month of barakah and khair. And so as we are ending this month of Ramadan with this few hours that have remained, I really would urge myself, first and foremost, and urge all of our brothers and sisters, take this time off and sit in some corner of your house individually and seek Allah's forgiveness for all that we have done. As Dr. Ihsan was mentioning, we all know what we have done. Each and every one knows. We may forget some of the things, but by and large, we know. Have we done our prayers correctly? Have we done our sadaqat correctly? Have we done our mu'amalat correctly? And so let us sit and really seek Allah's forgiveness, as we know that once the Prophet ﷺ was ascending the minbar and he called the people, and then they heard him saying Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. And when he finished, they asked him, what is this Ameen? And then he said, for woe unto those who Ramadan has come and he has not gotten that opportunity to get himself relief from his sins. He have not been forgiven. It means that he did not take this opportunity to seek Allah's forgiveness. So that's one. Secondly, by now, at least you have still up to tomorrow, but here in America, to do your Sadaqatul Fitr or Zakatul Fitr. And this is the amount that you pay for yourself and members of your family. It is $10 per person. And like Imam Shafi also said, if there is a fetus that is going to be born within this year, you also pay a $10. This $10 basically, it does two things. One, it cleanses some of those, wasteful moments that we may have had in Ramadan. Some of the lewd, maybe we looked at television too much, we looked at or we said things that we are not supposed to say. Imagine just a plate of food that you give, it is going to help you as the individual to clarify, to get that off, to expiate that. And at the same time, it's tu'matul lil masakin. And at the same time, it provides food for the poor people. So it's a win-win situation for all of us. And this is the beauty of Islam, that it cares for everybody in society. So the poor is getting food for their family, and the person who gives is getting cleansed at another level of cleansing of what he or she might have done in the month of Ramadan that may have injured his or her fasting. Lots of takbirat in the morning of Eid. You prepare with a lot of takbirat once you finish your, some said from some of the opinions from after Salatul Maghrib, but the better is after Salatul Fajr on the day of Eid until the time for prayer. So you do lots of takbirat. Let your home be filled with this takbirat, because sometimes what happens, we leave our own home like a graveyard, and then we do all the takbirat in the masjid, and nobody does takbirat at home. So now this year, let us light up our home with this Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. Make sure you also prepare yourself in these last days. Yes, get nice clothes and put them on as you will put them on to go to the masjid. Let this Eid be very, very special. And Allah knows that He has closed us up, and also the shaitan was closed up too. Both of us were closed up. We were closed up in our home, shaitan was chained. Now shaitan is going to be released. And in some states, like my state, they are thinking this afternoon, as a matter of fact, it's about time they are thinking about phase two of releasing people. So shaitan and us, we will be released at the same time. So we have to be careful that we do not fall back and say, oh, I have missed out this, I have missed out that. Rather, take these days and these hours and spend them for the pleasure of Allah, seeking forgiveness and the dua, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. We say it until this Ramadan is over. Wa jazakumullahu khairan.
MashaAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep the shaitan locked up. So we will make the dua, mashallah. Joining me, the two special guests, mashallah, the young scholars, Sheikh Mustafa Umar, mashallah. Sheikh Mustafa Umar has got BS in Information and Computer Science and BA in Theology and Islamic Law and Masters in Islamic Studies from UK. Mashallah, studied at Lucknow and Kahira, and is also, mashallah, the imam in many of the centers there in Southern California. Welcome, Sheikh Mustafa Umar. And then, mashallah, we have got our beloved, respected Dr. Yasir Qadhi. He is not as young as Brother Mustafa, but I consider him also too young. So sometime I'll call him Dr. Yasir out of respect, but mostly Yasir Bhai. So welcome, Brother Yasir. Should I introduce you, or you are too known?
We're all brothers, alhamdulillah. No need for an introduction, alhamdulillah. But I just like to say, I entered the call and I heard Sheikh Abdul Rahman say that we and Shaitan have something similar. It kind of scared me, like we are locked up, they are locked up, we're going to be released. So this is qiyas ma'al fariq, Sheikh. Big fariq, inshallah. Let's hope there's no legitimate qiyas over here, inshallah.
So Sheikh Mustafa, tell me, how can we kick out the shaitan from our own selves, from our houses, and especially for the rest of the one day which is left of Ramadan al-Mubarak?
Important that Ramadan is viewed, it's really important that we view Ramadan as something that is not just going to come once a year, and we do all of this ibadah in Ramadan. We do prayers, we do fasting, we refrain from bad language, more than we normally would. We control our anger, but then as soon as Ramadan is over, we just go back to exactly the same routine that we were doing before. But this is not what Ramadan is about. Ramadan is about making a permanent change in our life. It's about becoming a better Muslim in the month of Ramadan and letting the effects of that change actually emanate throughout the rest of our lives, throughout the rest of the year. So I think it's really important that we need to keep the momentum up in the last, time that we have in Ramadan, and also to make sure that that momentum, at least part of it, is going to remain after the month of Ramadan is over. So this is my suggestion for everyone and for myself, is that if you were putting in the time and effort to read lots of extra Quran, inshallah you were able to do that, and may Allah accept from us. Put in a little bit more time than you were before Ramadan in how much time you put in reciting Quran, reading the translation of that Quran, reading tafsir of Quran, whatever it may be. Have a little bit of extra of that. If you are putting more emphasis on, controlling your anger, controlling your nafs and your desires, make sure that you cool down and that anger control actually remains after Ramadan as well. If you were able to quit smoking in the month of Ramadan, whether you're smoking cigarettes or you're smoking shisha or whatever it may be, don't just go right back into it. Don't just go back into your normal habit. Try to keep that up throughout the rest of the year, or at least at minimum try to decrease in some capacity. So it's very important we kind of just rethink Ramadan. Don't think of it as something that you come in, you do all these things, and then you just go back to where you were before. You're never going to be able to keep up the momentum that you had in Ramadan throughout the year. It's not designed to be that way. You're not going to be able to read the amount of prayers and the amount of Quran in Ramadan throughout the entire year. That's not the point. The point is at least there should be some of those things should be long-term permanent changes, even at a reduced level, but at an increased level compared to what you were previously. So this is my first suggestion to everyone. And secondly, what you can do to start that process is by doing the fasting of Shawwal. So hopefully this was not already mentioned, but the Prophet ﷺ, he basically said, whoever fasts in the month of Ramadan, they should follow that up. If they follow that up with 6 fasts from the month of Shawwal, it's as if they fasted continuously, meaning as if they fasted the entire year. And that's something that everyone is encouraged to do. So as soon as Ramadan is over, we get this opportunity immediately. The day of Eid, you're not supposed to fast. You're supposed to celebrate. You're supposed to enjoy. But then you have Shawwal to kick a little bit more in gear and perform at least those 6 fasts, which are going to be basically multiplied for you. Because the way it works is any good deed in Islam, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger, is that it's multiplied by 10 times at minimum. So if you fast Ramadan, it's like fasting 10 months. If you fast 6 days of Shawwal, you multiply it by 10, that's like 60 days equal to 2 months. 10 months and 2 months makes 12 months, as if you fasted the entire year. So this is something beautiful. I encourage everyone to really try and keep that momentum up and get the Shawwal fast in as well, and keep those good habits that you have, that you have made in Ramadan, and remove the bad habits that you had given up in Ramadan. Keep those bad habits away. Don't let them come back.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Mustafa. Now let me ask you, Dr. Yasir, the question: do we have to fast the 6 days of Shawwal consecutively, or they can be done with some breaks?
That's a good question. Yeah, so that's a good question. It's a very common question. So the fast of Shawwal, they don't need to be done consecutively. So you can do them directly in a row, or you can spread them out over the month. You could do Monday and Thursday. You could do 13th, 14th, and 15th, but they don't have to be done in a row. So there's some leniency in that. Also, a very common question, which probably maybe you were going to ask me or not, but a common question that people ask is, well, what if I missed fasting in Ramadan and I'm making qada, I'm making up those fasts? Can I, combine intentions? Can my making up the fast from Ramadan also count as my days of Shawwal? So, some scholars have said it's okay. Other scholars have said, no, you shouldn't. Both opinions are valid, but my personal opinion on this is with the opinion of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and many other scholars. They explained it that if the hadith is saying that you have fasted Ramadan and you're adding in addition to that 6 fasts, then you get the reward for the entire year. So if you have not completed Ramadan, because you're still making up fast from Ramadan, then you should be doing the make-up fast separately from the Shawwal fast. And if you can't do all of them in the month of Shawwal, you can do the Shawwal fast first and then make up the fast of Ramadan afterwards. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair. Now, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, there is some discussion about the riwayat which come about the fasting of Shawwal. You may like to throw some light. I mean, I'm sure, as mashallah expert in hadith, you can tell us that they are very authentic, and definitely people should fast during the month of Shawwal, but you've got the right to disagree also.
So some of the early ulama did not consider these hadith to be valid. So it's interestingly enough, Imam Malik did not consider this to be something from the Sunnah. So the Maliki madhab, still to this day, you have 2 riwayat within them. But generally speaking, the Maliki school was not big on this particular area because they felt the hadith were not authentic. And again, Imam Malik is very early on as well. Remember, he died 179. And so he's the first of the great authors of Muhaddithin. Imam Bukhari is 2 generations after. And so hadith is being compiled regionally, and Imam Malik in his time frame, he did not find the riwayat to be to the level of making amal or sound based on that. And of course, other ulama and other scholars, they had reports from other Sahaba. And so, of course, now it is something well known and codified that the 6th of Shawwal are indeed a part of our tradition. So, inshallah, we should have no haraj in that. And those who want to be strict in their Maliki adherence, they have a precedence in that, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
MashaAllah. Now, let me ask you also this question. How can we benefit from the rest of the days of Ramadan, and how can we best celebrate the Eid, given the situation we are in now?
So one of the most difficult time frames to do ibadah is going to be tonight, because psychologically we know that Ramadan is going to be over. This is our last night of Ramadan, and it's human nature to feel, okay, well, the odd nights are over, khalas, is going to be just the closing up. Yet at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, khitamuhu misk, and the Prophet said, innama amalu bil khawatim. And so we need to make an extra effort that we finish off the month of Ramadan. And in these very last hours, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ, in these last hours, it is separated, the A student from the B or C student, the student who really is doing it for ihsan, who's doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's doing it because he or she genuinely recognizes that this is a blessed time frame, it is a blessed night, the barakah is still there, and they're eager to gain every last barakah, versus the mediocre. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly in the Quran, throughout the Quran, categorizes the believers into the sabiqun and the ashabul yameen, into those that are going to win and going to be at the very front, and those that are so-so. Allah says in the Quran, ثُمَّ أَوْرَثْنَا الْكِتَابَ الَّذِينَ اصْطَفَيْنَا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا فَمِنْهُمْ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمِنْهُمْ مُقْتَصِدٌ وَمِنْهُمْ سَابِقٌ بِالْخَيْرَاتِ. So righteous people are not all the same. You have those that are sabiqun bil khairat, racing to the end and winning. And then those that are muqtasid, and literally muqtasid translates as mediocre. So the question we need to ask ourselves, do we want to be mediocre in the eyes of Allah, or do we want to be sabiqun bil khairat? And it is in these time frames where we know Ramadan is over. This is, our last night of this Ramadan, and many of us, as I said, we've kind of psychologically thrown in the towel. But those who really want to win the race, they want to gain the maximum reward, this is the time frame that Allah will see from them an extra determination to do something good so that they can acquire the very last bits of this month. And I want to conclude on this as well. That spirit of wanting to acquire the very best, it is that spirit that separates ihsan from mediocre, just passing the grade. It's not a matter of these last hours. It's a matter of your paradigm. It's a matter of how you're looking at it. And inshallah ta'ala, that spirit is going to translate to future good deeds as well.
MashaAllah, it seemed like in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a plan how to see off the month of Ramadan al-Mubarak. وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. So do you see that there is a sort of indication what should we be doing at the last day of Ramadan, glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing the takbirat, showing the gratitude to him for the month of Ramadan al-Mubarak, and focusing upon our du'as. Because as Abdullah ibn Masud radiallahu ta'ala used to do, he will do Salat al-Jum'ah, and then he will stand at the door of the masjid, Ya Allah, I did what you asked me of, so now I am asking you to do what I need of you. So I think the night of Eid al-Fitr is the night of Laylatul Ja'iza, the night of prizes.
Yes.
So we will be focusing a lot upon the dua, the shukr, and especially the personal dua. So maybe, what's your take on that, mashallah?
Yes, this is explicitly narrated from the Sahaba and Tabi'un. وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. If you look at Al-Tabari and others, this is explicitly referenced by a vast majority of Sahaba, that وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ is a reference to the takbirat of Eid, a primary reference. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that when we finish up the month of fasting, we should then increase our thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The concept of increasing our ibadah after worship, it is explicitly mentioned in many verses, including the verse with regards to the finishing off of Hajj as well, is that once you have finished the rites of Hajj, then فَذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَذِكْرِكُمْ آبَاءَكُمْ أَشَدَّ ذِكْرًا. Once you do the actual ibadat, you've done your rites, don't forget now you have to increase your dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So once again, this notion of increasing our rituals, once a major ritual has finished, it is a constant theme of the Quran, and it is an indication that our good deed has been accepted. As Allah says, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah accepts deeds from those who have taqwa. So if our Ramadan has been accepted, if our fasting has been accepted, inshallah, it should translate as us being from the muttaqeen. If we are from the muttaqeen, it should translate as us increasing our level of spirituality and religiosity. We ask Allah to be amongst those people.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. I also see that once we get done with the month of Ramadan, then in Eid, we are required certain things. That sense of social cohesiveness, that sense of sharing and caring through Zakat al-Fitr, this seems to be the essence of Eid al-Fitr. So Dr. Rania, how can we carry the momentum of Ramadan al-Mubarak and the message of Ramadan al-Mubarak and take it to our social interactions, and especially helping those who are needy and who are really the masakin and the fuqara?
Yes, mashallah. That's exactly right. I think the idea of really carrying forward the concept of Eid and the joy, mashallah, that comes in it, and doing so safely, as we talked about earlier, mashallah. There's a couple of things that I think I'd like to highlight here, particularly how families have been really feeling that this is going to be a different Eid, and many children have been telling us the same, mashallah. And part of really making sure that we are really hyper-emphasizing the joy in Eid, both to our families, but also to our communities, even though it may be by distance and virtually. This is going to be really important to make sure, first of all, we are always, especially for our children and ourselves, that because Eid is not necessarily celebrated outside, for those of us who are here in North America, as other holidays might be, we are always at a situation where we need to make sure that it's higher and more of a priority to decorate for Eid, to call our family members, to bring our homes to life, as the Blessed Shaykh spoke before me, of bringing the takbirat into our homes and really filling the spirituality, the void that we sometimes feel. Now, this particular Eid is distinct because we're not going to be able to have that communal feeling that Eid normally brings with it. And so to replace that with alternatives, so many organizations are putting on virtual Eid celebrations and Eid concerts and various things, mashallah, that we encourage people to engage in because they're able to do so virtually and safely. We're also making sure that people are doing a very good job.
Now, Dr. Ihsan, let me ask you,
Dr. Zulfiqar seemed to have become frozen. And alhamdulillah, let me ask my own question, because I wanted to make a point anyway, that as I began my discussion earlier, that, Islam is all about self and community. Improving self, improving community. We in Ramadan have been focused on ourselves, as we should. As we come out of Ramadan and as we emerge, in a sense, in this new world, I think we need to reflect on the lessons of this experience of COVID-19. Because what is clear should be to everybody the inequality that exists in our society. The fact that so many of Americans do not have health care, live lives that are prone to health, falling into health problems, inequality of incomes. This should be an issue and a problem for us as Muslims, as a Muslim community. We become strong as individuals, we become strong as community, as Muslim community, but then our light is not just for our heart, the light of Islam is not for just the masjid. The light of Islam is for the world. And our community needs to step up and become part of the solution. This is my old days, part of the solution, not part of the problem. We need to, reassert ourselves, become even more focused on trying to right the wrongs in this country and to join forces with those who want to do that.
Jazakallah khair. So what you are seeing is that the message of Ramadan and Eid is not only individual purification, but getting to the society at large and making a difference over there. So Dr. Yasir, what should be our message of Eid to the non-Muslim community? Dr. Yasir Qadhi?
Yeah, I think this is broader than just the message of Eid. I think overall, this COVID crisis, I think it is an opportunity for all of us to demonstrate the reality of what our faith is about. The time of great difficulty, financial, food, this is the time where our masjids need to step up and demonstrate إطعام الطعام ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. The hadith of the Prophet when he entered Medina, that afshu salam wa at'imu at-ta'am wa silu al-arham. It's not just a matter of the day of Eid, it is a matter of overall. I see this as a golden opportunity for the Muslims, whom alhamdulillah, generally speaking, most of our communities, generally, I know it's being a bit stereotypical, but most of our communities, large segments of them, they are able to help out to a certain degree, packing food items and whatnot. So Eid should be a very good opportunity to do this. I want to do a free plug to my own masjid, East Plano here, that alhamdulillah, since the COVID crisis, every single week we have been giving food packets to everybody. We've had hundreds of people coming every Saturday. Even tomorrow we're going to be doing it, and we're going to continue after Ramadan as well. And on the day of Eid, we're going to also be giving out packets to anybody who comes. So may I encourage other masajid across the country to do the same thing, just boxes of packed, pantry items, pasta, rice, anything that can last long, or oil, and we're giving them out, inshallah ta'ala, just anybody, free of charge. And the media has come, the local news stations have spread the word, and so the lines, good news, last week, the lines were literally blocking the road outside the masjid. That's a very positive sign. Majority were people of other faiths, and that's what we want. So free plug of an idea. I hope your communities can also give back, not just on the day of Eid, but beyond the day of Eid as well.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. Actually, you will see that many of the masjids are distributing the food freely. At the Islamic Society of Milwaukee, we raised almost $90,000. And alhamdulillah, we have distributed the food to Muslims as well as non-Muslims. And even tomorrow, there are close to 500 boxes of baklava, which will be just distributed to anybody who will come. So I will suggest that every community tries to share the message and the blessing of Eid al-Fitr with not only with the Muslim community, but also with the non-Muslim community. Dr. Osama, any special idea about how to share Eid al-Fitr with the non-Muslim community?
As a Muslim, to recognize that our entire life is an act of worship. Sometimes people assume that the act of worship is limited to praying or making istighfar. In our religion, as I understand it, our entire life is an act of worship. We assume reward when we fast and when we start eating and celebrating the day of Eid al-Fitr. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will reward us as well. When speaking about the core message of Islam and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, when each one of us become a messenger of this religion. When speaking about the Islamic centers, the activity, it's beautiful and wonderful, but imagine the entire community moving to become a messenger for this religion through our action, interacting with people around us, sharing with them happiness, sharing with them the food, and we are a community really rich in its cultures. I want to add a point about Ramadan and entering Eid, that our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a personal one. And after reading the Quran al-Kareem in Ramadan, I wish that we all can move from reading the Quran al-Kareem as a text to start reading the Quran al-Kareem as the very much a live voice we hear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Through this interaction will benefit ourselves and our entire community. We do feed and provide assistance, and we do this not for reputation, but we do this because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expected from us after the treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah. Although the Meccan were giving the Rasul so really hard time, Rasul heard about a financial crisis existing in the city of Mecca, and the Rasul sent to them assistance. So when we celebrate as an individual, as well families and a community, I think we should include the community at large in our celebration. They will enjoy our food. They will share. We can share with them our culture, and happiness in the day of Eid is an act of worship. Indeed, it is.
Jazakallah khair. Now I see Sheikh Abdul Rahman. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, let me ask you this question, that very often when we fast, when we do, mashallah, our ibadat, they are meant for our personal well-being. And unfortunately, now what I see is people would like to have some spiritual discussion, something which is personally uplifting. But I see the responsibility of sharing the religion of Allah, the message of Allah with community at large, one of the big obligation. وَسَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَفِي هَذَا لِيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ شَهِيدًا عَلَيْكُمْ وَتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. So how much that responsibility is upon the shoulder of the Muslim community here in North America, and how can we carry the message of Ramadan into after Ramadan, especially when it comes to calling people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our actions and with our statements. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, are you there?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, yeah. My phone somehow has been on and off. I've been turning in different directions to, to get. I'm sorry about. I'm now backing the light. So anyhow, yeah, definitely. Islam is about starting internally to understand your deen with iman, with strong conviction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to know him, to be conscious of him, and to take this from inside your heart to spread it around those around you. And opportunity like Ramadan is a great opportunity that people get to now hear this word Ramadan as a normal word. Now you go to the stores, you go to anywhere, and you hear people say, oh, you are in your month of fasting, the month of Ramadan. So Ramadan becomes a household name. Islam has become a household name. And so us here in United States of America has to go beyond our masajid. Our masajid, yeah, they're closed down now, and we are interacting with the community outside as we go for our, medical or personal groceries or whatever it is. We still go and interact with people. So our masajid are preparing us to go beyond these walls, these four walls of the masajid, to go and spread Islam by our character first and foremost. People judge you by your character, and we know the character of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is what was first and foremost. Wa innaka la'ala khuluqin azim. Among the earliest surahs that were revealed to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that Allah has given him that seal of character. So we need to have that character of kindness, of justice, of love for humanity. We are not the judges of humanity, so we have to make ourselves available. The way we carry ourselves in the public is a way of dawah. Too often people look at us, the way you have a beard, sisters in hijab, and somebody would just stop you and ask you a question. We must be kind enough to stand there and explain what is Islam to them. So from this spirituality, from this internal, it has to be external, because we are shuhada ala nas, to witnesses
Jazakallah khair. It seems like Sheikh Abdul Rahman got disconnected. Sheikh Mustafa, let me ask you this question. What are the signs that our fasting and acts of ta'at are accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The question came from one of the audience. So how do we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted me? Are you there?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and made this test for us in our life, you know, it's oftentimes we don't know exactly what our scale of good deeds looks like when we're living, nor do we know our sins and our scale of bad deeds. So it's like if anyone played those video games, either today or in the past, you know, you don't have like a little score over your head saying like you have this many good deeds and you lost this many points and this is where you are right now. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a wisdom for that, you know, and that's there's a wisdom in not knowing exactly where we are so that we can find that balance in our own lives of having hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also having fear of Allah that we're not doing enough. And Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, he made a great statement where he said basically if Allah was going to say that I'm going to put everyone in paradise except one person, then I fear that I may be that one person who's going to be going to hell. And if everyone was going to be put in hell except one person, then I hope with the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I would be that one person who's going to make it to Jannah. So really Islam is about balancing between this hope and this fear. And, you know, there may not be like a direct sign that, you know, you've been praying where your prayer is accepted. What percentage of your prayer had khushu'? You get 78% in your taraweeh, or was it 33% or whatever it was? We don't have like some exact sign, but what we should do is we should understand that, you know, we should put in our utmost effort. We should remember that whenever we're feeling a sense of despair, we put our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy that he's going to give us reward for all of the things we're doing. And we ask Allah for forgiveness for our shortcomings. Whenever we feel a sense of overconfidence, you know, my prayers are perfect. You know, I mean, I'm sure I'm like at the 99 or 100 percentile. We should have that level of fear that, you know what, maybe there's some arrogance going on in my heart. Maybe my ibadah is not up to par. Maybe I need to be putting in more effort. Islam is really about that balance, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has probably hidden the details of which istighfar has been accepted, which dua has been accepted, how many good deeds we have versus how many bad deeds we have. He's hidden it for that specific reason. So rather than looking for a sign, my suggestion is to understand this principle of balance and try to make sure you're applying it in your own life in the best of ways, and that will, inshallah ta'ala, reach us to the highest ascent of felicity, inshallah ta'ala.
Dr. Rania, let me ask you, how do we feel that peace is coming to me? And especially, honestly, and I'm talking about my personal experience. There are so many times when I want to hear something either from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or to feel something that somehow he has appreciated it and he says he is shakur. Sometimes I feel that maybe he shall send some kind of sign. You know, there is always this struggle. So how do you feel that we really have that kind of guarantee from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And how can we have that surur enter our heart after the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think there's several things to really think about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really teaches us important things, especially in the difficult times that we've been in. And he reminds us in the Quran, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها, that he will never burden us more than we can bear. And also kind of reminding us that anything that we have been facing with difficulty, قُلْ لَا يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا, that Allah will never allow us to experience something except that he has already written it for us, and therefore if it's come to us, then inshallah ta'ala he's going to get us through it. And I think having that, which Shaykh Mustafa said, بَيْنَ الرَّجَاءِ وَالْخَوْفِ, to be between the emotions of hope and fear, so that you're always balanced. But Ibn Qayyim says that the wings of the two birds, the hope and the fear, balances you out, that the head of the bird is actually love. And I think that's very important to know, that we're balanced and we're also carried by love, and that helps to enter that surur in the heart, the love in the heart, as you had mentioned.
Dr. Yasir, now let me ask you one more time, because there is discussion still going on among some of the Muslims whether or not we should do Salat al-Eid at home, or the Salat al-Eid done at home is accepted as Salat al-Eid. And mashallah, you joined us later on. So would you like to throw some light upon the real fatwa which the Fiqh Council has issued about doing Salat al-Eid at home?
Yes, so to assure our listeners that the fatwa that we're giving is not a departure from classical fiqh. Not that a departure is always wrong. We are, all of us on the council, we firmly believe that the role and the goal of a fatwa is to contextualize our tradition in light of our modern circumstances. So there are times where, yes, an unprecedented or a new fatwa will be given. However, our fatwa on Salat al-Eid is nothing of the sort. It is simply highlighting a very well-known opinion and bringing it to the forefront in light of the COVID crisis. In fact, we find it in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba that Anas ibn Malik was not able to attend the Eid in Basra in 1 year. And so he had a Eid in his own house with all of his entourage of, mashallah, a very large family and all of his servants, everybody, they prayed, even though there was the Salat al-Eid in the Basra grounds, but he was not able to for whatever reason, and so he had the Eid Salah in his own house. And so he did his own Eid Salah, and it counted. And there are over 10 reports from the Tabi'un, Tabi'un, with either they were asked or they themselves did not pray Eid for whatever reason, and they then prayed it in their houses, or they gave the fatwa that whoever is not able to pray Eid should pray in his house. And one of them explicitly said, or more than one, I think that is it Hamad ibn Abi Salama, he said that the one who prays Eid at home should pray Eid the way that it is prayed in the Jama'ah. Now, of course, as you can understand, there is going to be the diversity of opinion, and we respect all opinions. And so many of our brothers from the Hanafi madhab, they have stood by the position of the Hanafi school, which is that whoever does not pray Eid, he should not pray Eid at his house, and he may offer a special Salat al-Duha. So even the Hanafis, they say he may pray Salat al-Duha. So okay, we say to the families that if you want to follow this position, then at least pray that with the family, so that the family understands that today is a special day. Nonetheless, we want to underscore very clearly that our fatwa, and alhamdulillah, we're very happy that our sister organization that we also respect, Amja, has released the exact same fatwa. And so both the Fiqh Council and Amja, which represent the majority of Muslims, alhamdulillah, in North America, they have given the fatwa that Eid should be prayed at in one's houses, and Jama'ah should be done in accordance with the methodology of Eid, and also that the khutbah, not being a necessary part of Eid, one does not have to give the khutbah. And what we are doing, again, a free plug for our masjid here, that we are announcing that Eid will, the Salah will be at 9:30 a.m., for example. Everybody will log on, listen to the takbirat. They can see us pray. They pray their own Salah at the same time. We will finish the Salah around the same time. Then I will give the khutbah, and our community will tune in live and just listen to the khutbah as a general reminder. Not that they're connected via long distance, but just as a general reminder. So this is our position, alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair. Dr. Osama, now let me ask you, there's difference of opinion between the Malikis, Shafis, and Hanafis when it comes to takbirat. And we know that there's not a single authentic hadith about the number of takbirat which has come to us from Rasulullah sallallahu directly. It is either the opinion of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala, which is preferred by some of the schools. So I'm thinking that if somebody does the Maliki opinion, now let me tell you, I'm not Maliki, I am Hanafi 95%. But I'm thinking, if somebody does 12 takbirat, 7 in the first and 5 in the second, he is basically combining the Shafi, which is 11, and also the 6, which is the Hanafi school of thought. So what do you think? Should we encourage people to do 12 rakahs, or should we stick to our schools and our madahib and focus upon either 11 or 6? What is your opinion? I can't hear you. You have to unmute.
I am really glad that you are Hanafi 95% of the time. Maybe you are Shafi'i the rest of it. Well, I am in favor of us appreciating and celebrating the diversity within our school of thought. and some might assume that one of them is right and the other wrong, not recognizing that most of this is اختلاف تنوع. اختلاف تنوع means that two positions can be valid. So if you came from a tradition or a family growing up Hanafi, like Dr. Zulfiqar here, pray according to the Hanafi school of thought. If you came and if your imam in the masjid expect is provide you, if you are praying behind the imam in the masjid, you obviously follow him. I think sometimes we get distracted when concentrating 100% in the issue of how many takbirah, not realizing that the core part about the salah is to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to have the sense of celebration by reciting many takbirat. You can recite as many as you want, all of this will be acceptable. But I feel like we should move from the discussing, you know what, is it valid? All of them are valid and there is no argument about that. I think we have to reach the core part of the salah. The core part of the salah, us celebrating, praying a certain way, reciting the takbir to celebrate the achievement we did together. When people read the Quran, when people speak about dua being accepted or not, I often feel like Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, when he mentioned that when your heart is in it, then it's a sign of acceptance. When we say to people, your recitation can be just the manifestation of what you have in your heart. I feel like when your heart is attached to the dua, attached to salah, when you feel each part of the salah, then I'm not really worried if you are Hanafi or Shafi'i. I'm not worried if you are Maliki or Hanbali, because you are Muslim, and our heart being in it, I think it's the key issue. I saw a question that came a while ago when someone said, can I pray Salat al-Eid as an individual by myself? Yes, certainly you can pray Salat al-Eid as an individual by yourself, and many school of thought will support you doing this. If your community, however, if your community came with an opinion, and if the Imam of the Islamic Center came with an opinion, I think we should be unified behind our leadership. If your committee is organizing a khutbah in certain time, I think we should appreciate this and listen to the voice coming from the leadership. And this is part of the beauty of our religion. Our religion accommodates any circumstance, and we are right. ففهمناها سليمان وكلا آتينا حكما وعلما.
Jazakallah khair. Now you raised one point. You said that a person can do Salat al-Eid individually. But as you know, the Ahnaf, now here I am Hanafi, okay? So they require that for Jama'ah, at least you need to have the 3 or 4 adults. So what are we saying? That people can do Salat al-Eid individually at home, or they have to have at least some people to have the Jama'ah? So let me just hear from the Fuqaha. Who wants to, okay, maybe Sister Rania, you want to say something about that? Is the Jama'ah of Eid requiring 3 at least and the 4th Imam, or it can be done by individuals? Anybody can jump in.
Well, I'll jump in accordance to the Shafi'i madhab, which is what I study and teach, mashallah, and I'll let the Ahnaf, mashallah, answer the Hanafi question. That is, according to the Shafi'i school, a person can pray individually at home and also in the Jama'ah. So either are fine and acceptable.
MashaAllah. So let me go to the Ahnaf. Somebody in between now. So Sheikh Yasir, do you think that people can do Salat al-Eid individually at home, or they have to do the Jama'ah at home?
So the fatwa that the Fiqh Council has given is something that they can do individually. The Hanabila as well have individually, and the Shafi'is have individually. I know that the Hanafis are obviously, mashallah, always on the stricter side here, but we have given the fatwa that they can do individually, not a problem, inshallah.
So what you have to understand, Dr. Zulfiqar, that, by the way, I'm 5% Hanafi. So you're 95, I'm the other 5. What we have to understand is that we are in some extraneous situation right now. We are at a time where fiqh has been reinterpreted a number of laws that were there a while ago now has to be reinterpreted to fit in the circumstance in which we're in. In a pandemic, when you're locked up at home and you're person all alone by yourself, we have to think about the emotion that person who wants to pray Eid Salah but cannot go. So I think the Ahnaf need to relax their position and say, you know what, that yes, inshallah, they can pray by themselves and it will be accepted. And let's hope and pray that, maybe some of the khair that comes out from this pandemic is that we get closer with we get closer to each other with our understanding and application of fiqh rather than our differences.
No problem. Even if the Ahnaf do not relax their opinion, I did because of the council. I agree whether individuals want to do it individually or in a group, they can do Salat al-Eid. Dr. Ihsan, let me ask you this question. I've heard many of the young people, they say, somehow in Islamic religion, and that's what is their personal experience, they say, we focus so much upon the details of how to do the Salah, what is halal, what is haram, but we do not focus so much upon the human rights or human interactions. Why not so many details in that issue? And why there is so much details when it comes to God to man relationship? There are so many details given in our books of fiqh. But when it comes to human interaction, sometimes we do not focus that much. So, what will be your response to those young people?
I would agree with them that to focus too much on the details of how to do something and lose sight of the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose is not necessarily to go through certain motions. In fact, the ultimate purpose is not just not to eat, because as the Prophet Muhammad said, your fast is not worthy if you do bad things while you're fasting. So we do need to focus more so on the ultimate purpose, while at the same time maintaining carefully the limits, the details of our deen. So there's a balance there. We do want to focus on how to pray correctly, but at the same time, what is maybe even more important, that we focus on making sure that our heart is present, that we feel the words that we're saying. But beyond that, there are issues of character, which again is one of the ultimate purposes of this deen, that we not focus on not necessarily what we wear, but how we act. And then even beyond that, how do we deal with the world? And again, to me, establishing justice in the world, being upholders of justice and righteousness in the world, is an ultimate purpose of our deen. And so, yes, I think we absolutely need to focus on those major priority purposes of our deen, but not forgetting about the details. We cannot just, think that let's just, focus on being good and not worrying about how we pray. No, we want to do both, but realizing that ultimately our purpose is our heart, and also a good world, a just world, that we always need to keep our eyes on the ultimate purposes of the deen.
Jazakallah khair. You raised a very important point, Dr. Ihsan. I mean, when you look at the Quran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kunu qawwamina bil qist shuhada lillah, or kunu qawwamina lillahi shuhada bil qist. Allah is justice, and justice is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But sometimes we do not even focus upon these issues of justice here and around the world, and we focus so much on the details of sometimes ibadat. So maybe Dr. Yasir, what do you think? Should we have the balance between our akhlaq and our ibadat, or our muamalat and our ibadat? I mean, how can we strike that balance?
Jazakallah khair. This will be the last question for myself. I have another engagement after this. So I've just finished the series I've been doing about the summary of the Quran. Every day we did one section of the Quran for this whole month. SubhanAllah, one of the main themes that keeps on coming up over and over again is that in the earliest Makki surahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is emphasizing so much our akhlaq and our muamalat. So we did Waylul lil Mutaffifin. And I mentioned to them, this surah came down even before Allah Azza wa Jal had legislated Salah. We did, so Waylul Mutaffifin, woe to those who are cheating people very slightly, just a slight amount. The taffafa is to cheat a little bit. And Allah Azza wa Jal is criticizing them with the harshest criticism. It is the mindset. Also in the famous verse that Allah Azza wa Jal revealed, again, early Makkah, that the righteous are those who feed the hungry even though they need it. And also the first hadith that our Prophet said when he entered the city of Medina, that أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ أَفْشُوا السَّلَامُ وَأَطْعِمُوا الطَّعَامُ وَصِلُوا الْأَرْحَامُ وَصَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ نِيَامٌ. And these four things, they represent four pillars of our religion. And ibadat comes at the very end, and that is the salah. The first three have nothing to do with our rituals, and yet they were mentioned before the rituals. Number one, it really summarizes our akhlaq, afshu salam, because we begin and end our interactions with salam. And when we perfect our salam and we spread our salam, we are perfecting our akhlaq. Number two is, of course, our social work, our activism, giving back to the community, where we are making sure that we're not selfish individuals. We feed the hungry. We shelter those who need shelter. We take care of the orphan. Number three is the family unit. We have to have strong families. And then number four, last but not least, is our personal ibadat between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Islam is about all four of these aspects simultaneously. Number one, our akhlaq. Number two, giving back to the community, helping others. Number three, families. And number four is our rituals. Too often, all too often, the religious folks, they concentrate on the last aspect, which is the rituals. And because of this, they give Islam a bad name. As I have said many times, our Prophet ﷺ was known as a Sadiq, and he was known as an Amin, even before he was called a Nabi and a Rasul. His akhlaq and his mannerisms, those 40 years that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to be who he was before Iqra came down, those 40 years, even though they were less than the 23, yet they were needed for the effectiveness of the next 23. Because in those 40 years, he established his credibility not via theology, not via wahi and revelation, but via akhlaq. Because you need to establish your credibility via your akhlaq before you talk about theology, before you talk about rituals. If a person's akhlaq are not in order, his whole message will not be in order. And that is why, unfortunately, it is very true, some of the religious folks, they so much emphasize the rituals that they do not emphasize the akhlaq, and they end up leaving a bad name for religiosity that is not real religiosity of the Quran and the Sunnah. The real religiosity combines all of these things. May Allah make us amongst those people.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yasir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Now, very important point, Dr. Rania. And I remember the ayah of Surah Al-Hajj, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu rka'u wasjudu wa'budu rabbakum waf'alul khayra la'allakum tuflihun. Now, some of the scholars, they say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ruku, sajda, and then ibadah, and then says waf'alul khayr. And then khayr is something which is connected with human interactions. Would you like to throw some light on that ayah, or maybe from this perspective that ibadah is important, but the way we interact with other human beings, the way we behave with them, is far more important than our personal relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Both, subhanAllah, are incredibly important. And earlier the question had been asked, why is it that we see so many fiqh rulings about, the ibadah, but we're not really seeing so much about these personal interactions? And I think for that, I'd like to really point out that sometimes we don't realize that there is such an extent of rulings related to personal human interaction, and that is the mu'amalat. Often many people focus just on that personal worship, and they forget all of what happens after in terms of even fiqh knowledge related to mu'amalat or interactions. And so yes, Dr. Zulfiqar, thank you for this point, that we have to really make sure that we are engaging in society, realizing how much our personal interactions affects others. Otherwise, it is an empty shell. of having prayed and fasted and given in charity, but if our interactions don't show that, it doesn't come through. So I'll just remind us and myself that the Prophet ﷺ was given to us as a walking Quran. One of the most important du'as that we recite and we kind of say, inshallah, in our prayers is, Ya Allah, as you have perfected my outsides, perfected my, shape and form, that you perfect my character and my insides. And so, inshallah, I pray that that's a dua that becomes true in all of our interactions.
MashaAllah. Wonderful. Jazakallah khair. I remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallam, in which at least he mentions three times, Khairun nas may yanfa'un nas. The best of you is the one who is more beneficial to the other human beings, not the one who does 1,000 rakahs of nafal. The nawafil are very important, the salawat are very important, but the way we take care of the other people, idkhal surur, to basically cause the peace and happiness to enter to the heart of another Muslim, or man farraja an muslimin kurbatan, to alleviate the pain of another Muslim. So maybe, Dr. Osama, would you like to throw some light on this aspect? How can we carry our ibadah of Ramadan into our actions after Ramadan and being beneficial to human beings, taking care of the poor and needy, and causing happiness in the lives of the people?
Well, maybe when we realize that the ibadah of the Salat, Siyam, Zakat is maybe 5% of the religion. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he said al-Iman or Islam bid'un wa sittuna shu'bah, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam include within 70 plus point, Salah was one of them, Zakat was one of them. This is why we said Islam is a good way of life. A good way of life when we are mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all of the time, then anyone will interact with us, will benefit from us. خير الناس أنفعهم للناس, not only to the Muslims, when benefiting others around you. Muslims, like someone with a beautiful smell. If you interact with anyone, can smell the beautiful perfume that you are wearing. This is how Islam was spread as a religion to start with, when people live the Islamic value. But I think when it's very easy for people to speak about the Salah, to speak about the Tahara. I remember that Shaikh al-Ghazali, when he spoke about people spending most of their time literally in the bathroom, speaking about the Tahara and the Wudu, and not realizing that Islam is the way of life. Islam is a religion with so much power. The power in our religion really transform the entire, not only Arabian people, but the human family. And we all benefit, the human family benefit from us. الشيخ المودودي mentioned in his book ماذا خسر العالم بانحطاط المسلمين. I feel like Ramadan is a good opportunity for us, and it's like us having an intensive course, and inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala Ramadan will transform our entire life. We said in the beginning of the month that we can transform our homes to become masajid after, because we don't have masajid. I think we can allow Ramadan to transform our entire life. By doing this as a human, we will do it right most of the time, and sometimes we have a struggle. It's understandable, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive us if we ask for forgiveness, will assist us if we seek assistance, and inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala it will be a benefit for everyone. Living in Islam as what our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam did, practicing Islam in our masajid, our homes, while working. We said in our religion, all is act of worship when we pray, and even when we play, we assume reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair, mashallah. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, Dr. Osama Bahlul. I know, mashallah, there are so many questions, and the discussion can go on and on, but we have to, inshallah, conclude. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, Dr. Ihsan Bagby, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, Dr. Bahlul, Sheikh Mustafa, Umar, Dr. Rania, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically what we agreed, that number one, Eid al-Fitr is going to be, inshallah, on this coming Sunday. And I hope that Eid al-Fitr is going to be all over the Islamic world on this coming Sunday, because the moon was not sighted this evening. So inshallah, hopefully, the entire world will celebrate Eid al-Fitr on Sunday. Second, we said that a day of Ramadan is left, so let us focus upon our tawbah, our gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our personal du'as, and the night of Eid is the best night to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your du'as, for your munajat, and for the favors you are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you. And then Eid al-Fitr can be done at home and should be done at home. We should not have the large Eid gathering, and we should not listen to those people who are not focusing their decision based upon medical opinion, but these are politicians, so we are advising the community, do not listen to the politicians, but listen to the medical experts, and do not go out and mix with the people, especially do not hug anybody, do not shake hands, do Salat al-Eid at home as a family, and you can go out and congratulate your brothers and sisters from a distance, but maintain the social distance, put on your face mask, and take all the precautions. And the most important point which we have discussed so far is take the message of Ramadan into your practical life after the month of Ramadan. And the best you can do is to focus upon the moral values, upon the way you interact with other human beings, and especially become beneficial to other human beings, Muslims as well as non-Muslims. Be the source of peace, stability, and happiness in the life of other people. Try to share their pains, try to alleviate their pains, and by means of serving humanity, you will get the utmost reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take this pandemic away from us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your acts of ta'at. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your day of Eid. Eid Mubarak to you all from ISNA and from Fiqh Council. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.